knob do?
Prepare for launch in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome to Connections with Kevin. I'm the host, Kevin, and you're listening to this on weirdradio.net, or you might be watching this on our YouTube channel. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel below, or, make this one of your favorites, bookmark it, whatever the fuck you gotta do. But, the name of the show is Connections, as I've already said. And what's it about? Well, this is where I'm going to share with you the information that I have, gathered over the years, I guess. My experiences and whatnot regarding the spiritual community, the ethereal, the metaphysical, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Excuse me, my nose itches. Whatever falls under like the New Age umbrella these days. That's what I will be sharing here with you. Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. Hi, my name is Kevin, and I have been reading cards for a few years now, maybe like 4 or 5 years, something like that. Anyways, I read tarot, which is probably the most common kind of card reading. I also do oracle, ascension. I'm a little rusty on Lenormand, but I'm kind of relearning that again. I am also learning astrology, so that's going to be fun. And what I have decided to do is teach as well as learn. So if you end up subscribing to this and you end up listening and watching, there will be shows where we are learning together. I'm not going to be one of those pompous pricks that sits here and pretends that I know everything there is to know. I'm sure there's a fuckload of things that I don't know, but there are also a fuckload of things that I do know. So I'm going to share what I know, and hey, maybe we'll learn some shit together. Cool? Awesome. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume that if you're here, you either have an interest in the metaphysical, the ethereal, the spiritual, or you have like a little bit of knowledge. Maybe you've dabbled a little bit. Maybe you had a fucking Ouija board or saw the craft when you were younger. I don't fucking know. But I do know that the light as a feather, stiff as a board thing actually kind of works. Kind of weird, but whatever. I have some notes over here to kind of keep me on track. I do have a tendency to ramble at times. I like to tell stories, anecdotal shit, and you know what? Just fucking sit back, grab a glass of wine, bottle of water, bottle of tea, have fucking tea. I don't know. Just get comfortable and, let's have a little learning sesh or go on a journey together, shall we? So, first things first, what is considered metaphysical or ethereal? A really simplistic definition would be a simple definition for metaphysical would be anything that isn't, I guess, tangible by our general 5 senses of, sight, sound, whatever. They tend to lean, like the metaphysical stuff is outside of that. What's a little weird is that you can feel it sometimes. It will have like a physical sensation. There have been plenty of times that I've held a crystal in my palm and actually felt my palm and hand getting warm or having a tingling sensation or vibration to it. So there are physical symptoms or not symptoms, but physical sensations that you can feel, obviously. But that's like a really loose definition of metaphysical. Ethereal is similar in that it is outside of our usual 5 senses. Like, you can't take a picture of the ethereal. It's things that tend to exist on another plane or within another dimension. And again, that's like a really dumbed down version. No, I'm not calling any of you dumb. I'm just trying to get it to where anybody listening or watching can get a grasp of what I'm talking about. So that's that. Um, Things under like the spiritual realm, like the spiritual definition, are a little more. I almost want to say they're a little more pigeonholed because if you say spiritual, then people are like, oh, yay, Jesus or Allah or whatever. And that obviously is a spiritual thing. That's like a spiritual journey in and of itself. But when somebody says spiritual, they usually mean the opposite of organized religions. Um, and that doesn't mean that they don't believe in a single God, um, whatever name you want to call it, uh, Yahweh or Allah, God, whatever. Um, but for all intents and purposes in my show, unless I'm talking specifically about one of those religions, um, I will refer to it as source because I mean, if you kind of think like water it down, that's pretty much what it is. The source of all things. So um, that's why I don't like to use spiritual so much because it does kind of envelop organized religion as well as like more new agey type stuff. Um, so there's like a little baseline, but one of the things that I know the most about are like crystals, minerals, and chakras and that kind of stuff. Um, Mainly because I used to sell crystals. So if I'm going to sell something, then I need to know all I need to know about it. So me being the nerd that I am, I got all kinds of books and read stuff, and it's stupid like how much knowledge is locked away in this noggin at times. Um, but in that same vein, because now I'm wanting to learn astrology, I got like a stack of like 30 something books. But whenever I bust that out for here, I'm probably going to just whip out the astrology for dummies. It, I thumb through it. It, simplifies a lot of things to where anybody with even like no knowledge or very little can grasp the concepts. Um, but moving forward beyond all that, the metaphysical and ethereal realms are really interesting in that all of it kind of ties back to energy. And that's whenever you start bringing in, quote, real science, like physics and hence metaphysical, but physics and string theory and quantum theory, like oddly enough, all of those really out there ideas and like what some people call like advanced science tie into the metaphysical and the ethereal. So, without blowing your minds too much on the first go round, when it comes to energy, like one of the laws of physics is that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Or does that matter? Anyways, it just changes form. I think that's a really. It's been like over 20 something years since I've been in fucking school, so kiss my ass if I screwed that up. But you get the idea. It's like matter or energy can not be created nor destroyed. So everything that exists now has always existed in some form or another. So when you really kind of dig through all the bullshit and like peel away the layers, I guess, and just kind of get down to the nitty gritty of it, everything has like an energy signature. And with that in mind, you can then understand how things like crystals and metals and herbs and other things of that sort like natural things can have a positive or negative effect on the human body or the human consciousness. Because there are like some crystals that facilitate things like astral travel, uh, and I'll get into that later. And then there are, different natural things that help us connect to the earth, through like grounding or earthing. Two different words, same concept. Um, and then that also ties into the different chakra centers, which are like energy centers within each person's body. And there are like the seven main ones that pretty much everybody knows of. It's the root, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, throat, third eye, and crown. Um, and if you want to put those in a location on the body, then you're going to be looking at your root chakra. It might as well just kind of say like it's your tailbone. Um, that's like the easiest location to give it. And then your sacral is going to be your, I want to say like your crotch, but it's not really your crotch. It's like right above that, more like your pubic area. Um, for women, it's where your uterus is. For men, where your bladder is, I guess. Um, that's going to be like your sacral. Then, if you go up above the navel, like a straight line, where your like rib cage comes together, and that little peak in there, that would be where your solar plexus is. And then your heart chakra, obviously, like right here. Throat is this area, third eye, and then crown is actually like right above here. Um, it's usually considered like a couple of inches above your head. So those are the seven main ones that people know of. There's actually 12, but I'll get into that later. Anyways, each one of them has a different vibration or energy signature. And with that, there are certain crystals and minerals and herbs, even, that have a similar or complementary energy signature. And that's why they say there are certain minerals and crystals that, work best with your root chakra or your sacral, etc. And if you really want to kind of dumb it down, it's kind of color coded almost. And it's really almost like Roy G. Biv. It root is red, then orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, purple. It really is Roy G. Biv. So, um, with different crystals and minerals having those different signatures, that kind of ties back into the whole string theory, sort of. Because if you really kind of make the dots connect, you'll be able to figure out that, okay, well, okay, for fuck's sake, just use an example. Let's say hematite. Hematite is a really heavy iron based. It's not really like a metal. It's more like an alloy, but whatever. Um, anyways, hematite is a grounding stone. It's a protection stone. It works well with the root chakra. So you could probably say that at some point the atoms that make up hematite at one point may have been part of something that worked with your root chakra or part of another being in their root chakra. So it's really weird how you can kind of like make those parallels and connections. But beyond all of that, that's where like the quote unquote real science ties into the metaphysical science. And you're never going to find like a study or whatever it's like peer reviewed and published that says, okay, yes, well, these crystals and these minerals helped heal or alleviate the symptoms of these physical ailments within these people. Because they'll always chalk it up to something like placebo effect. And that's also why if you ever find like a quote unquote crystal healer and they can claim they can cure your ailments, slap the shit out of them because you can't. Like, there's not any. There's like no medical science or anything, medical proof that shows like crystals and minerals and herbs can cure certain things. Like, yes, I will go ahead and say that they can help alleviate symptoms, but they can't like actually cure anything. So slap anybody that says that they can do that for you. And herbs and meditation and crystals and minerals, all of that should never replace like the treatment of a medical professional. They can sometimes you can find like functional doctors, like functional medicine doctors or homeopathic, naturopathic ones that use medical treatments in conjunction with, herbs and supplements and things of that sort, because they understand that, hey, there is a connection. We may not have like the ability to prove it now, maybe in the future we will, but there's a connection. They don't quite understand it. They can't really prove it, but they know that it works well together. So in that regard, yeah, you may find like functional medicine doctors or homeopathic or naturopathic ones that do say, hey, we're going to try this treatment and then you also need to carry around this or start taking this supplement. Because a lot of things, yeah, they can be, I'm not going to say cured. I can never say cured. But they can be reduced, alleviated, whatever. So, anyways, I feel like I'm getting off track. So yeah, that's just a really long fucking answer as to how real science and metaphysical science kind of join together sometimes and can actually work together, and how they actually work together through energy signatures. What else falls under the ethereal and metaphysical and spiritual realms? Well, there's all kinds of things. I mean, if I could get it all into one show, then I wouldn't be doing a show. I'd just do like an episode. But the ethereal realm is a little different than the metaphysical. The metaphysical usually just deals with like energy stuff, as I just spent like 15 fucking minutes talking about, sort of. The ethereal is more of like doing meditation and how you can go places in your mind, but this is where it's going to get a little more, I guess, in depth. So when it comes to the ethereal, one of the things you kind of have to understand is that all the things that we think of as like fables and myths and just legends of old, things like dragons and unicorns and fairies and all that shit, I can go ahead and say that they do exist, just not on this plane or in this dimension. What most people don't understand, well, people in the spiritual community and such, we understand this. So that this is something I'm going to share with you then. Um, we would be considered third dimensional creatures, like 3D creatures. Yes, I understand. Like I say 3D, it's like, ooh, yay, 3D films, whatever. No, um, third dimensional. There's like a couple below us, obviously. Uh, that's where like the lower beings would be. Those are the ones that like to fuck with you. Um, there, to my knowledge, there are 12 different dimensions, and we exist on the third. So our physical reality exists on the third dimension. Now, these myths and legends that we've read books about, we've seen movies about, and we love them, and we're like, yay fairies and yay dragons. They exist, just not here, not in our physical realm, and that's what I mean by that. I'm not telling you that you can go to England and go find a fucking dragon or some shit. No. Um, the ethereal planes exist beyond our limited physical reality. So, everybody with me on that? Okay. So, when you meditate, um, I'm not going to talk about me meditating, it just doesn't happen. Well, it's rare. Um, if you're able to meditate, and what you should be able to do is once you kind of find your zen, I guess, or your calm, you more or less take your consciousness outside of your physical body. And in that in that moment, you are doing either astral projection or astral travel. Now, once you get to that level, um, things get fun. uh, Only because once you leave your physical limitations behind, whatever you can imagine, you can create, at least in like the fourth dimensions on up. I will go ahead and say that generally speaking, when we do astral travel, it's going to be in the fourth dimension. Simply because it takes a special kind of person to get to levels 5 and up. So, yeah. Um, in the astral realm, you really, if you're not mentally prepared for it, you'll probably think you're losing your fucking mind. Mainly because you'll see things, you will see things that kind of defy logic. Um, because in the astral realm, time, space, distance, those things don't really matter. Um, Simply because once you're there, you can travel at the speed of thought, which is why, say you're meditating and you want to check in on a friend or something or someone much, much further away from where you are physically. Well, in the astral realm, you can actually do that. You can, think of that person, and because they have a specific energy signature, that's where you end up going. And it's really, I know like there are some of you listening, watching, and they're probably like, you're full of shit, Kev. But, um, truth be told, we are all capable of it. Um, and I can go ahead and tell you that every person watching or listening has had what I'm about to describe happen to them at least once in their life. When you're asleep, and I mean, you're like fucking dead asleep, and you have that sensation that you're about to fall out of the bed or fall out of the chair, whatever, and you kind of like jump, and sometimes you might wake up, but sometimes you just kind of like come a little bit out of your sleep and then just go right back into it. That is your astral body going back into your physical one. There's a little bit of a jolt whenever it happens, and if you've ever experienced that, and I'm pretty certain anybody listening or watching has, then you, while sleeping, were doing something in the astral realm. I don't know if you're getting, you getting it on with something. I don't know. If you're having a party or if you were just bebopping around the multiverse, I don't know. But that is just an example of, yes, all of us are capable of doing it. In fact, if I really want to kind of crack some souls on this, all of us, every single human, no matter how intelligent or how simple, we are all capable of a multitude of things that we have been told we're not able to do, such as like astral travel and healing ourselves. Without going into a whole fucking conspiracy theory, to put it simply, the way humans are now is not the way that we are supposed to be. Like, we're supposed to have long, healthy, fulfilling lives, like each and every one of us. We're supposed to have that. But through, I don't know, various channels, we have been hindered, and part of the spiritual community is all about, shaking free of all those chains and becoming the kind of human that each one of us is supposed to be. Things like telepathy are supposed to be normal. Astral travel is supposed to be normal. Healing ourselves with energy is supposed to be normal. Being able to talk to animals is actually supposed to be normal. I know some of you are probably like laughing at that, but you'd be surprised at the things humans are actually capable of doing if we actually try. And that's one of the other things that I kind of want to help do with this show is like help some of us. I don't know. I really hate fucking saying like awaken or be woke because I don't know. Recent culture has really kind of taken that and run way off the fucking rails with it. So now it doesn't really have the same meaning that it should. So yeah, humans are actually really, really powerful beings when we actually believe in ourselves and when we actually try. But a lot of us are really fucking lazy now. I mean, I'm one of them. I mean, well, I used to be. I'm not as much now. But that's the whole point, or not the whole point, but one of the points of this show is to help some of you along your journey and, reach your full potential as a human being. Not by whatever society's like, oh, be all that you can be. No, fuck you. You just want me to be like a tool in the machine. No, but be like the best version of you that you can be as a human. As like a sentient being. as an empathic being. Ooh, empathy, empaths. That was something else that I wanted to talk about. Um, in a nutshell, we're all empaths to some degree. Uh, that is a term that over the last several years has really been thrown around a lot. People are like, oh, well, I'm an empath. Okay. And they say that as like some kind of, I don't know, like a fucking status symbol or something. I don't know. Hey, look at my badge of honor. Cool. Well, all humans are empaths to some degree. Uh, being empathic means being able to feel what another person is feeling. And I mean that's like empathy, right? Oh, well, there's a difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy means you can actually feel what that person is feeling, like you've felt it before, so you know what they are feeling. Sympathy is like, oh, hey, my condolences, thoughts and prayers, whatever, fuck you. Um, but being an empath is a really broad term, at least now it is. It used to just be, oh, well, I'm empathic, so I can feel what other people are thinking or feeling at that time. And for a true empath, going into a crowd is a fucking nightmare. Um, Especially if they haven't learned how to like. Okay, let me do a little anecdotal shit. Being an empath and going into a crowd, it's like having a radio antenna attached to your brain, and every person in there is a radio station broadcasting. And what they are broadcasting is what they are thinking or feeling. And if you don't know how to, like, I don't know, disable your antenna or put a dampener on it or something, then being in a crowd is really overwhelming, like energetically and emotionally, and mentally. And all that then ends up making you feel physically drained, and it's just a fucking nightmare. It really, really is. Um, and that's what being like a true empath is. Now, most of us have had, you know, empathic moments where, say, you know, go see a friend and you just feel that something is off about them. Like they're going through some shit and they need to talk, but the conversation isn't even saying anything of the sort. And you just feel it that they need to talk about something that is on their mind. And then you're like, hey, what's bothering you? Or what is it you want to talk about? And that gives them the window and the opportunity to, oh, hey, that's cool, this is what's actually on my mind. And we've all had moments like that. And that is just a low level example of being empathic. Um, Now, for whatever reason, the word empath in the spiritual community, it's some kind of like, I don't know, blanket term for being highly intuitive, being psychic, um, having any clair abilities. And I'm just like, okay, y'all motherfuckers need to like chill and let's kind of like sort this out. It's like you can be psychic but not empathic. You can be empathic but not psychic. You can be empathic and not have any clair abilities. Um, if you don't know what clair abilities are, everybody knows the word clairvoyance. You can see visions or see things before they happen or as they are happening sometimes, or things that have happened. Um, there's also clairaudient, where you actually hear, like, I don't want to say messages, because it's not like oh, hey, let me check my voicemail. It's just that you get information through audio stimulation as opposed to like visual. Um, Clairsentient is when you just Clairsentient is feeling and just knowing, um, which is kind of interesting. It's like, how do you just know? Well, I just feel it. Um, so that one is a little out there. I mean, I want to say out there because I've experienced that, but it's one of the ones that's more difficult to, I guess, explain, define. I don't fucking know. And there are other ones where you can taste and smell, but that just sounds horrible. Like, I would not want to like smell the future. It's like, I don't want to know, and I definitely don't want to taste it. Uh, so there are people though that, oh well, I smell this, and they're like, my grandfather used to wear that. It's like, well, shit. All right, cool. So in that regard, I guess it can be useful, but for me, I'm like, no, I don't want to like smell somebody's old fart. That's just me. Um, Anyways, shit, what have we covered so far? I've covered like metaphysical, covered the ethereal, I've covered a little bit of astral travel, um, some of the dimensional stuff, empathic stuff. Shit, I've covered a lot so far. What else should I talk about? Because I mean, I don't know, like 37 minutes or some shit. I don't know. Oh no, okay, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I think maybe I don't know. Um, Oh, let me talk about um, what most people think the ethereal and the metaphysical kind of encompass. Um, one, oh, you know what? That's what I can do. I can kind of dispel some of the, I guess, urban legends or misconceptions, misinformation. Um, if somebody says they're spiritual, that doesn't mean they're a fucking witch. Also, witchcraft isn't, doing dances with the devil and orgies or whatnot. No, that's not what it is at all. A really simple definition of witchcraft is kind of using um, intention, which kind of ties into manifestation, which ties into the energetic stuff. Um, Using intention to achieve desired results. That's more or less what that is. Whenever a spell or something calls for like, oh, well, I need a lock of this person's hair or fingernail clippings or something that they're really attached to. It's like, okay, well, I understand that because it's going to have their energy attached to it. And if you're doing a spell for that person or whatnot, then you want that direct channel, like the direct energetic channel to them. So that's how that kind of ties in. If it calls for like certain herbs or whatever, then it's just to facilitate that, to amplify it. It can still be done without them, but it helps to have them. Um, let's see, what else? So yeah, being spiritual doesn't mean you're a witch. Doing witchcraft doesn't mean deals with the devil. In fact, that would be a mixture of two different ideologies. um, and let's see, what's some of the other stuff? Being spiritual doesn't mean you're anti-religion. Uh, it just means that you. Well, it depends upon the person, to be honest. Uh, for some people, being spiritual means that they don't believe in a one path. They just like to kind of take life as it comes, and they believe in whatever they want to believe, and that's that for them. Other people see being spiritual as having beliefs outside of the boxes that organized religion are in. Um, because some spiritual people, they're like, well, I believe in source or a source or the source, with that being like the beginning and end of all things. Because you come from source, and when you die, you return back to the source. Um, which kind of sounds matrixy now that I think about it. But that's no different than something like Christianity, where you believe that you come from God, like God created you, and then when you die, you go back to God. So it's like, okay, well, I came from here and I'm going back. Same thing with any monotheistic religion. You were created by this being, and then when you die, you go back to it. So oddly enough, they all kind of have like the same cyclic belief, I guess. Um, Also, just kind of go back one moment. Witchcraft doesn't usually entail any kind of sacrifices of any kind. Just throwing that out there. Um, One of the things that being spiritual, it's kind of like a common thread throughout the spiritual community, is that we're all connected because we all were something else before. Um, there's like a, I don't know, was it a meme? I don't fucking know. Or I don't remember. I know, but I don't remember. Where we're all stardust, which kind of goes back to, I guess, even with the monotheistic stuff, it's like we all started in the beginning, and now there's all this stuff. So, being as that matter can't be created nor destroyed, just changing forms, then at some point I might have been a star. Who knows? Same for you, same for anybody here. Hey, maybe we're all part of a planet once. But that's kind of like the one of the common threads throughout the spiritual community, is that we are all connected because we all come from the same source at some point. Like all things. And that kind of ties into the whole thing of like being able to communicate with animals and other living things like plants and trees, which you probably think I'm nuts for saying that, but it is quite possible. And if you've ever walked out into your yard and just felt more at peace because you're outside, well, there's a reason for that. That would be because you're connecting with the living things around you, and they make you feel better. So, I think it's enough for like this episode. I think I've covered like way more than I wanted to. And I didn't really cover anything like truly in depth. Which more or less is the whole point of the first episode, is to just give everybody kind of like a baseline to start from. So now you have a very basic knowledge of a lot of the things that entail the metaphysical, the ethereal, the spiritual, etc. So I'm going to end the show here. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you like and subscribe. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you with a lovely little track that I actually made. And don't try to meditate to it. I mean, if you can, great. But the title is called Meditate to This, and it's actually more like tongue-in-cheek because you kind of can't. But regardless, enjoy the tunes and tune in next week. All right, take care, and blessings to each and every one of you. Bye.